amazing day here with Wired, celebrating the last 25 years and looking ahead at what the next 25 years will bring for us. And it's been a very inspiring day as well. And the perspective I take on this is that I've been with my company, Accenture, for 30 years, over 30 years. And we've been really looking at all this technology that we've been talking about today and looking at what the impact is going to be and how we've been building and applying technology to help our clients, large companies and organizations around the world, innovate and change what they do applying this technology. And it's great to see so many customers and partners in the room on the stage as we celebrate all the history and where we're going. But what I'm going to talk to you about today is a new perspective that we think we need to take as we look at how the future unfolds. And I'm going to talk about the idea of imagination. Imagination, a really human capability, and why we believe imagination is a key trait and a key skill that we need to develop as we think about the future, and why this means we have potentially a much more human era ahead as we look to what the future holds. But let me back up and start a little bit by how I came to technology. Back when I was a kid, we didn't have computers or mobile phones. I think this is true of many of you. This is what I did when I needed information. I literally read the encyclopedia front to back, and when we got through it, we got a new encyclopedia and got new information. And that was the access to information when I was growing up. And then I discovered programming, and it was this kind of programming. It was punch cards, Fortran 66, and somewhat painfully constructing programs, but it was liberating and exciting at the time, the ability to use information and create programs in this kind of fashion. And then in the year 1983, this appeared on the campus of the University of Michigan, where I was studying computer science, and it changed my life. The idea that you could build a device like this with a graphical user interface and solve problems in a different way led me down the path that I followed for the rest of my career, which is how do we build and create innovative, exciting technology that can change the way we work and live. And then if you go to this event, 1993, I still remember the day that this arrived at my home, the internet in a box. I don't know if any of you remember this, but this was 1993. The year Wired was formed. This is how I initially got online. And then the combination of compelling computing like the Lisa and the internet at our fingertips through devices like this is what built up the excitement in me that we could really do solve tremendous problems by applying technology. And that's where Wired started. And this whole journey we're talking about here started with the 25 years of history that we're celebrating. And there's many, many technologies that make up the 25 years. And this is just some of them that we charted on this slide here. And this is the story of the exponential technology revolution that we've been living in. Roughly, we started this in around 1950, which is when Alan Turing roughly came up with the Turing test and when the transistor was invented. And it led to this amazing period of innovation that we've been on, that we've been talking about, that Wired has been charting for the last 25 years. The mainframe computer, the PC, mobility, et cetera, that you see charted on these graphs. I'm not going to talk about each one of these, but the point to take away from these charts is that the slope of the waves of technology are growing faster and faster, or increasing, accelerating. So technology adoption is increasing with each successive wave, and the waves are compressing. It's like a Doppler effect of compression in the waves of technology. So we don't have as much time as individuals or businesses to adapt to the new technology because we're dealing with multiples at the same point in time. That's what creates tremendous opportunity for us all. And you'll see AI at your right-hand side of the screen, and I'll come back and talk about that more in a minute. We just heard on the panel a minute ago, and we've heard throughout the day about artificial intelligence, and I'll talk about why we believe that's particularly important. And if we think about what my company does, also in the 50s, in 1954, the very first commercial business application on the first commercially shipped UNIVAC-1 was the payroll system for General Electric's appliance division in Cincinnati, Ohio. And Accenture, and our predecessor company, built the payroll application to run on the UNIVAC-1, which is the first commercial business application. And that led to this wave of automation of applying technology in different ways through the mainframe era and other things that followed. Then we had the wave of re-engineering that many of you probably recall from the 90s into the 2000s, which was thinking about the knowledge worker and desktop computing, then mobility and other things, and how we re-engineered processes. And then we moved into this digital age that we're broadly in right now. And I would argue that these models of automation, re-engineering, and digitization aren't sufficient for thinking about the problems that are coming, and we need to think a different way. Now, why do we need to do that? Let me just show you some examples of what's coming and what's going to be natural. And again, we've heard about some of this today, but the idea of technology as part of our families and connected to our human experience is going to, if not natural already, will become natural. Other examples, like robotics, we saw Boston Dynamics earlier. This is a different example. Ants, literally ant-scale technology, robotic technology that can work together in a collaborative fashion to accomplish tasks. You know, the power of robotics. Technology enhancing our human cognitive capability. Cognitive neuroprosthetics. We haven't talked too much about things like that today, but our very own cognitive capability will be enhanced through technologies like NeuroPace, which is being used, an implant that's being used to reduce the rate of epileptic seizures in patients through learning capability and electric signaling, embedded in the body. And then there's other examples, nanobots in our bloodstream. That's a lot of interesting research going on there. There's other implications that may not be as clear as to whether they're good or not, using these technologies in policing, AI in predicting, preventing crime, video surveillance, and the like. So different issues we need to debate from a societal perspective. And then there's planetary impacts. I love the last panel with Sam and Sebastian talking about using the resources of the planet more efficiently. And this is certainly one of the greatest implications and greatest opportunities that we have with technology. But I'd say to you that why I'll come back to this reimagination point is that technology, I think for the last 25 years, the last 50 years, has been something that we use. It's been a device you can put in your pocket, you're holding in your hand, it's a screen or an appliance. Technology has been something we can use. We're entering a new era, in my opinion, where technology is something we are. In other words, it's not what we use, it's who we are. And we need to really rethink about the implications of this. Technology is becoming the core of our experience. The phone isn't just an accessory you can put down. It's becoming part of who you are. Most people report that they'd rather have a serious illness than not have their mobile phone, right? It's becoming so important to us. And that is really reshaping the way we need to think about technology. And a lot of this comes back to artificial intelligence. And I like to think about it not as artificial intelligence, but as applied intelligence, because it's really about how you apply the collective capability of the human intelligence we have with the intelligence we can get through technology and machines. And we heard a little bit about that through a few different sessions today, the ability to apply the intelligence that we have across humans and machines and technology. And as you think about applied intelligence, we think that then that leads to the need to reimagine the way things work. And I'll build this case for you of why we think we need to reimagine business, we need to reimagine the role of people, and we need to reimagine society. So let me walk through each of these very quickly just to paint the picture here for you. So reimagining business, what does that mean? Again, it means that we can't just automate the way we're doing things. We can't just use technology to add on to the way we're doing business. We need to rethink the way we're constructing our businesses and business models. And you can see this if you talk to business leaders. They recognize this. So among CEOs, 71% of CEOs say that technology disruption is their biggest concern. 71% of CEOs across industries globally. And 73% of CEOs across industries say that they're technology companies, primarily. 73%. That's the need to reimagine your business. If you were an agricultural producer, if you were a consumer products company, if you were a retailer, and you're now saying you're a technology company, you need to reimagine the way you do things, which is why you need to step back and revisit the entire way that you build the business. This is an example of one of the ways you need to reimagine your business if you're in the industrial products and operations industries. A jet aircraft, with aircraft engines, that used to be all about physical engines. When the plane landed, you checked the engines, you checked the viscosity, you checked all the different characteristics of the engine. You had a technician doing that, and you decided what to do. Now you get the real-time models in real time, terabytes of data coming from the engine, the real engine, wherever it is in the world, running AI models and simulations on when the engine can optimally be serviced and repaired, comparing it to the revenue model for the airline, crew scheduling, and everything else to decide on the optimal personalized treatment regimen for that engine. That's a different way of doing business, very different, bringing great benefits and productivity, more interesting jobs, and better asset utilization to industries that utilize this new approach. And that's what reimagining business needs to look like as we go forward. And along with that, you need to reimagine the role of people. And we've talked about this a few times today, but I'd like to go into this in a little bit more detail and talk about what we mean by reimagining the role of people, reimagining what we do. And I wrote a book on this earlier in the year called Human Plus Machine, which, given the title, you can guess at our perspective. But it's about the new role of people as we look to this future. And we believe that there's an area we call the missing middle that really isn't being talked about today, that are the new jobs that are being created by looking at the intersection, as I said earlier, looking at the intersection of what humans can do and what technology does. And there's a set of jobs where people are needed, humans are needed to help machines. And there's a set of jobs where machines can help people, and in essence, give people superpowers to do their jobs more effectively. And these are millions of jobs in organizations that are starting to appear now. We're starting to see these jobs appear in many different ways across organizations. And again, it takes the imagination of all of us to think about how do we train people for these new roles? How do we design business to create, not to just automate what people do, but to create the new jobs that are better for the business, better for the individual, and drive new levels of productivity? How do we create the learning platforms that will allow employees to continually learn so that they're more effective in operating in this new environment? And those are the challenges that all of us face in bringing this future to reality. And then there's reimagining society, which is the third thing I talked about, business, people, and society. And again, we've talked about this a few times today, but we believe that every organization has an obligation to think not only about what they do, but about how it impacts the society around them. This is some children being fed by a mega kitchen in India called Akshaya Patra. They feed 1.7 million children every day that wouldn't otherwise have a meal, because if you're hungry, if you don't have food, you're not going to learn. So the first step is feeding the children. We worked with Akshaya Patra to look at using artificial intelligence and blockchain to feed a lot more children, because there's more children in need. So how can we develop a roadmap to use technology to produce food more effectively identify those in need, and feed 5 million children a day rather than just 1.7 million children a day? And that's possible applying technology in new ways, and that's applying technology to society. And then you get into the idea of how do you make sure you're applying the technology properly? And that's where we talk about the five principles of responsible AI. And if you're an organization that's going down the path of implementing AI or working with AI, and you don't have something like this dictating the right way to apply it, we believe, not to submit, that you'll get yourself into trouble at some point, because you need processes in place, organizational responsibility in place, training in place, compliance adherence in place to make sure that AI is designed in an accountable way. It's fair and not discriminatory or biased. There's been a lot said about that recently. Transparent where it needs to be and explainable where it needs to be. Honest, not breaking laws, and designed with the human in mind. And those are 5 principles that we're adhering to in all the work we do, and we believe is important to codify in the ways we're operating in organizations. So it leads you to the question of where are we then with technology? What does the future look like? And we've talked in a few sessions today. Is this a dystopian future, or is it a positive future? And again, in my mind, it's a little bit of a glass half full or glass half empty. And I think one thing that I would also say is it's within our control as leaders, as workers, as citizens influencing the outcomes here. We can dictate and influence how this comes out, and it's about us taking the right actions now. Reimagining the way that we run our businesses, reimagining the jobs that people have, investing in people in the right way, thinking responsibly about the application of technology. And I submit if we do those things right, we'll be moving not to a more mechanistic dystopian future, but we'll be moving to more of a human age. And again, but it requires us to all think in a different way, and again, reimagine those roles and make sure we're taking the responsibility as leaders to do it. So that, again, leads to this human plus machine future. And I think I'd end just by saying that, encouraging you all to step back and look at this in the way that you do your work, in the way that you operate in your organizations, and think about how are your organizations and are you as leaders investing enough in the people and in the training of the people for this new future? Are you thinking creatively enough and reimagining the way your organization can work to take advantage of these capabilities? And I think, again, if we do this right, I think the next 25 years, as we look out from WIRED25 today, will really be the start of a more human era, And that's the possibility that we can all create together. So with that, thank you very much, and we'll move on to the next session. Thanks.